Okay, so picture this. You are the project director for a massive international infrastructure project. We're talking hydroelectric dam or maybe a new railway line, something well into the billions.
Right, massive scale.
Yeah, massive. You have thousands of workers, a fleet of cranes, and just enough concrete to pave a small city. And obviously, you're worried about the river flooding. You're worried about the steel shipments arriving late. You're worried about the geology.
Naturally, I mean, those are the physical risks. Right.
Yeah,
That is what you see when you look out the window at the site often.
exactly. But here's the twist. You actually manage all of that perfectly. The dam holds, the trains run, but then you realize you missed a single notification deadline in your contract by 24 hours.
Ouch.
Right. And because of that one missed email, millions of dollars in legitimate costs, money you actually spent out of pocket, simply vanish. You cannot ask for it back. The contract effectively says, thanks for the free work.
It sounds like a horror story from a Kafka novel, honestly. But in the world of major construction, specifically under the FIDI contracts, that is the very cold, very hard reality.
And that is exactly what we're unpacking today for you. We are doing a deep dive into the Silver Book, that's the FIDI 2017 Conditions of Contract for EPC Turnkey Projects.
But we aren't reading the whole thing.
No way, because we actually want you to stay awake for this. We are laser focusing on the one chapter that keeps project managers up at night, and that is Clause 20.
Clause 20, employers and contractors claims.
Right, and looking at the source material you brought in, this doesn't read like a standard agreement at all. It reads more like the rule book for a very complicated, high-stakes board game where one wrong move gets you eliminated immediately.
That is a very apt analogy. I mean, Clause 20 is the engine room of the contract. It dictates exactly how money and time are adjusted when things go wrong. And the specific text we are looking at today, the 2017 edition, is infamous because it made the rules significantly more rigorous.
So what's our mission here?
Our mission is to decode that rigor. We need to help you understand the fatal deadlines, the paperwork traps, and really why this contract seems designed to turn engineers into lawyers. We'll be hitting the 28-day notice, the contemporary records requirement, and that terrifying, fully detailed claim deadline.
Okay, let's start with the landscape. Usually when I hear the phrase construction claim, I picture the contractor, the guy building the thing, coming to the client and saying, hey, we hit hard rock, this is going to cost extra. It's a one-way street.
Yeah, that was the traditional view and largely how the older 1999 contracts operated. The contractor claimed and the employer defended. But if you look at Clause 20.1 in the 2017 Silver Book, you'll see a massive shift. It creates a reciprocal relationship.
Reciprocal meaning it goes both ways now.
Exactly. Clause 20.1 breaks claims down into three buckets. Paragraph B is what you just described, where the contractor wants additional payment or an extension of time. But look at paragraph A. It explicitly covers claims where the employer considers they are entitled to additional payment from the contractor or, and this is key, an extension of the defect's notification period.
Oh, like the warranty period.
Right, the warranty period. So imagine the employer thinks the contractor messed up a section of the works and wants to reduce the contract price to cover it. In the old days, employers might have just unilaterally deducted that money from the next payment check. Just, I'm the client, I'm keeping this.
A total power move.
Precisely. But the 2017 text stops that cold. It says if the employer wants money or wants to extend that warranty, they have to follow the exact same procedure as a contractor. They have to give notice. They have to submit details. They have to prove it.
So the employer is now trapped in the same bureaucracy as a contractor.
They are on the exact same playing field. This is a huge aha moment for contract administrators. You can't just be a passive client anymore. If you want to enforce a penalty or recover costs, you have to file a claim under Clause 20 or you lose the right to that money entirely.
That feels fairer, but also just exhausting. It sounds like everyone is just constantly filing paperwork against each other.
It definitely increases the administrative workload. And that brings us to the fork in the road you see in Clause 20.1. We have paragraphs A and B claims for money and time. These are the heavy hitters. If your claim falls into these buckets, you are forced into the rigorous machinery of subclause 20.2.
The danger zone.
The danger zone. But there's paragraph C. This is for another entitlement or relief.
What falls into that category?
Things that aren't directly about money or time. Maybe a disagreement about whether a certain certificate should be issued, or a dispute about the interpretation of a technical spec. If it falls under C, you get a shortcut. You skip the heavy machinery of Clause 20.2 and go straight to agreement or determination, provided you give notice as soon as practicable.
So if I'm fighting about an opinion, I have an easier path. If I'm fighting about cash, I have to run the gauntlet.
Correct. And since 95% of disputes on a construction site ultimately boil down to pay me more or give me more time, almost everyone ends up trapped in Clause 20.2.
Okay, let's walk into the trap. Clause 20.2, I call this the 28-day guillotine. The source text is Clause 20.2.1, Notice of Claim. Walk us through the trigger here. When does the clock actually start ticking?
This is where the most expensive arguments happen. The clause states that the claiming party shall give a notice to the employer's representative. It must be done no later than 28 days after the claiming party became aware, or should have become aware, of the event or circumstance.
It's that second part, should have become aware, that scares me.
Mhm.
Because becoming aware is subjective. I can just say, oh, I didn't read that email until today, but should have become aware sounds objective.
It is objective. It holds you to the standard of a competent professional. Let's take a real-world example. You are digging a foundation. Your daily site logs, which are generated automatically by the drilling rig, show a change in soil conditions on June 1st. But your project manager is busy and doesn't read the logs until June 30th.
So he becomes aware on June 30th.
In his mind, yes, but under the contract. A competent contractor should have reviewed those logs on June 1st. So the 28-day clock started on June 1st. If he files a notice on July 1st,
He's technically a month late.
and he is time barred.
And let's be super clear about what time barred means here. We aren't talking about a slap on the wrist.
No, the text is brutal. It says the claiming party shall not be entitled to any additional payment, and the other party shall be discharged from any liability.
Discharged from any liability. So even if the employer knows the soil is different, even if they completely admit it, they legally don't have to pay you.
Correct. The claim is dead. The money is gone. The logic here is that the contract prizes certainty over fairness. The employer needs to know about potential costs in real time to manage their budget. They don't want ambush claims showing up 2 years later when the project is basically finished.
I get the logic of no surprises. But in the 2017 edition, it seems like there's a new twist, a sort of countermeasure. Because what happens if I send a notice and the other side thinks it's late?
This is Clause 20.2.2, the initial response. And this is fascinating because it effectively weaponizes silence.
Weaponizes silence. How does that work?
So imagine you are the contractor. You send me that notice of claim. I receive it. I look at the dates and I think, wait a minute, this guy is late. He missed the 28-day window. In the old days, I might just file that away, keep quiet, and bring it up later in arbitration to crush you.
The element of surprise.
Exactly. But FID 2017 says no more hiding. If the receiving party considers the notice to be late, they must give a notice strictly stating that within 14 days.
And if you don't, if you just ignore my claim?
Then your notice of claim is deemed to be valid.
Wow. So even if I was late, even if I missed the deadline by a month, if you fall asleep at the wheel and don't object within 14 days, I'm back in the game.
Yes, your invalid notice becomes valid because of my silence.
This sounds like a high-speed ping pong match.
It absolutely is. Think about the workflow. Step 1, you send a notice on day 0. Step 2, my team has to immediately audit your timeline. Step 3, if we think you're late, we have to fire back an objection by day 14. Step 4, if we object, you have to fire back a disagreement. It forces the dispute to happen right now, not later.
It really emphasizes that you need a contract administrator who is basically a ninja. You can't just be good at pouring concrete. You need a team in the trailer just reading the mail.
On large EPC projects, that is exactly what happens. There are entire teams dedicated solely to Clause 20 compliance.
Okay, so let's say I survived the 28-day cut. I sent my notice or you forgot to object. I'm safe, right?
Far from it. You've just paid the entry fee to the stadium. Now you actually have to play the game. This brings us to Clause 20.2.3, contemporary records.
Contemporary records, that sounds like a very specific legal term.
It is. The text defines it as records prepared or generated at the same time or immediately after the event. This is crucial. You cannot sit down 6 months later and write a memory of what happened.
So no retrospective diaries. Dear Diary, 6 months ago, it rained really hard.
Absolutely not. That is not a contemporary record. That is a story. The arbitrators want raw data. Daily site logs, emails sent that day, photos with timestamps, delivery dockets. They want the truth captured before the lawyers get involved to polish it.
And looking at the notes here, the employer has a lot of power in this phase, too. They don't just have to passively accept whatever I give them.
Correct. The text says the employer can monitor the record keeping and, crucially, can instruct the contractor to keep additional contemporary records.
Oh, that's interesting. So if I'm the contractor and I say, hey, we're delayed because this access road is flooded, the employer can say, okay, I want you to log the water depth every single hour and take a photo starting right now.
Exactly. And if you, the contractor, fail to do that, if you ignore that instruction, later on, when you try to claim money for that flood, the employer can argue that your evidence is insufficient because you disobeyed a direct instruction to gather data. It weakens your claim significantly.
Okay, so we have the notice at 28 days. We have the records, which are ongoing. Then comes the big homework assignment, the fully detailed claim.
Clause 20.2.4. This is the heavy lifting. Within 84 days of that original event, and remember, the clock is still ticking from when you became aware, you have to submit the full package.
84 days, that's roughly 3 months. That actually feels like a decent amount of time compared to the 28 days.
It seems generous, but you have to compile a lot. You need a detailed description, all those contemporary records we talked about, and a detailed calculation of the money and time. But the real trap, the absolute landmine, is the requirement for a statement of the contractual or legal basis.
Why is that a landmine? Can't I just say, you breached the contract, pay me?
No, that is way too vague. You need to cite the specific subclause. You need to say, I'm entitled to payment under Clause 4.1, unforeseeable physical conditions, or Clause 13, variations. You have to tie the facts to the law.
And if I don't, if I send you the receipts but forget to cite the clause?
Then we hit the second guillotine. Clause 20.2.4 contains a specific poison pill. It says, if within this time limit the claiming party fails to submit the statement of the contractual or legal basis, the notice of claim shall be deemed to have lapsed.
Wait, lapsed. Does that mean the first notice, the one I sent months ago, retroactively dies?
Yes. It is treated as if it never existed. So you have two death dates. Day 28 for the initial flag, and day 84 for the legal justification. If you miss either, or if you mess up the content of the 84-day submission, the claim is invalid. And by the way, the employer's representative has 14 days to notify you of this lapse.
That is incredibly strict. It feels like the contract is just looking for any excuse to throw your claim in the trash.
It is designed to filter out weak or lazy claims. If you can't articulate why you are owed money within 3 months, the contract assumes you aren't actually owed money.
Now, I'm looking at Clause 20.2.5, agreement or determination, and I see a word that looks like hope. It says, the decision maker may take into account circumstances that justify late submission. Is this mercy?
It is a very narrow sliver of mercy. It's not a get-out-of-jail-free card. The text says the decision maker may consider details like, did the delay actually prejudice the other party? Or did the other party already have prior knowledge?
Prejudice is a heavy legal word. What does it look like in practice on a construction site?
Okay, let's go back to a wall collapse. The wall falls down, everyone sees it. The employer is standing right there in a hard hat. They know what happened.
They have prior knowledge.
Exactly. Now, suppose you, the contractor, file your notice on day 30 instead of day 28. You are technically late, but did your 2-day delay prevent the employer from investigating? No, they were there.
Yeah.
Did it harm their ability to fix it? No. In that case, they might use Clause 20.2.5 to say, okay, the notice is late, but we will accept it because the employer wasn't prejudiced.
But they don't have to.
Correct. It's entirely discretionary. And in a contentious project where everyone hates each other, you do not want to rely on mercy. You want to rely on your own compliance.
Now, what about the problems that just don't stop? I'm thinking about something like a flooded site where the water just keeps coming in for 6 months. How do you handle the 84-day deadline if the event is still happening? You can't calculate the final bill if you're still pumping water.
That is addressed in Clause 20.2.6, claims of continuing effect. The logic changes here. You submit your first detailed claim at 84 days, but it is marked as interim.
Just a progress report.
More than a report. It's a formal claim. And then the text requires you to submit further interim claims at monthly intervals.
A monthly heartbeat.
Yes. Every month, you have to update the accumulated cost and the accumulated delay. You have to keep the data flowing. If you stop sending those monthly updates, you risk prejudicing the employer, and your claim could be in trouble again.
And then it ends.
Eventually. Once the event finally stops, the water is gone, the ground is dry, you have a final deadline. You must submit the final fully detailed claim within 28 days after the effects end.
It really seems like the entire philosophy of this Clause 20 is no surprises.
That is the core philosophy.
Yeah.
The drafters of the Silver Book wanted to eliminate the global claim.
What's a global claim?
It's something that used to happen all the time. A contractor would finish a job, realize they lost money, and then show up 2 years later with a cardboard box full of receipts and say, you owe us $50 million for everything.
The ambush.
The ambush. The employer has no way to verify it. The people who worked on the job have left, and it turns into a 10-year court battle. FIDIC 2017 wants to force the pain into the present. It forces the project team to confront the financial reality of a problem while it is happening.
So let's synthesize the survival guide for you if you're staring down a FIDIC contract right now. What are the key takeaways?
First and foremost, reciprocity. If you represent the employer, wake up. You are now subject to the same rules as the contractor. You can't just deduct money, you have to claim it.
Number 2, the 28-day tripwire. Remember, it's not when you realize there was a claim, it's when a competent person should have known. Don't sit on bad news.
Number 3, the ping-pong response. If you receive any claim, you have 14 days to object to its timing. If you snooze, you validate their lateness. Check your inbox.
And finally, the legal basis. When you submit that 84-day detailed claim, do not just tell a sad story about losing money. You must cite the specific contract clause. If you don't show your work, you get a 0.
It's a rigid system. It's unforgiving. But those are the rules of the game. It forces project management to be as disciplined as the engineering itself. Failing to administer the contract is just as dangerous as failing to build the project.
It really reinforces that on these mega projects, the contract isn't just a document you sign and put in a drawer. It's a live operating system, and Clause 20 is the error handling protocol. If you ignore the error messages, the system crashes.
That is a perfect analogy.
But I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We've talked about how strict this 28-day time bar is and how it forces discipline, but does it actually encourage efficiency? Or does it force companies to become defensive bureaucracies, burying each other in protective notices just to stay safe?
That is the ultimate trade-off, isn't it?
It is. You might end up spending more time managing the paperwork than managing the concrete. Something to think about next time you see a massive construction site.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Silver Book.
It was a pleasure.
Keep your records contemporary, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.
If you're interested in the templates, please visit our shop. The link is in the description.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and see next time.